What's up YouTube? It's Fanta. And before anything else, I want to preface this by saying this is not a hate or beef video. Throughout this video, I'll be referencing a video by Laura Fryer, the games industry elephant, which is probably the best video out regarding, the culture war, I guess. To make my position clear though, there is no culture war at all. As game development tools and knowledge become more accessible, more and more kids get interested in the medium. Kids from all backgrounds, all walks of life. And over the years, those kids have turned into production leads, managers, head writers, and they want to integrate their stories, their culture into the games they make. And now we're seeing the results with a lot more diverse protagonists and a lot more diverse casts overall. And these so-called anti-woke warriors, they see these new, varied protagonists and casts as an attack on their identity, on their hobby. And because of a few coincidences, some bad apples, and some outright lies, this anti-woke group has managed to convince a sizable number of people that these diverse casts are the reason that gaming is in the sorry state it's in right now. But even more importantly than that, they've somehow, some way convinced their audience that the whole gaming industry hates them. I don't know how they did it, but it's done. Forget about that though. Essentially, this video is a response to the games industry elephant, so I would highly recommend that you watch that video first, just so you know exactly what I'm talking about, and just so you get the full context. To sum it up, Laura essentially says that companies are taking too many risks with their games and not attempting to appeal to the wider audience, to the general audience. Again, and I will continue to reiterate this, I love her content, and I believe she's one of the most insightful, empathetic, and knowledgeable content creators as far as gaming goes. But I disagree with this video all the way down to the premise. First off, let me quickly address the point that I actually agree with. I know this is going to sound weird after that whole intro I just did, but developers, please stop firing back against these anti-woke warriors. I know it is oh so easy and it feels so great in the moment, but just like the old heads say, not only does it reflect badly on you, it also reflects badly on whatever game you're working on. Just let the work speak for itself. And that's about it. Now onto the things I wanted to pick at. Yeah, we're getting into that pretty fast. For the most part, my disagreements are pretty minor, but the part of this video I take massive umbrage with is this Assassin's Creed Shadows portion, which outside of me just disagreeing, it really feels out of place in this video. Laura says,
did any of the executives at Ubisoft question whether or not doing Assassin's Creed Shadows was a good idea? I've been to Japan many times. I've worked with Namco as the producer on Revenge of Arcade, and during Xbox, I managed a team there. I love the people and the culture, and based on that experience, I would never have agreed to do this game.
Why though? First of all, please, let's demystify this. Everybody calm down. This isn't Hatred 2. You don't go around slaughtering innocent Japanese people as they scream for help. Yasuke and Naoe are warriors fighting other warriors in what I'm assuming is a war or some kind of period of unrest. There's literally nothing weird about this. In fact, no, slow it down, let's back up. Okay, so you just said you wouldn't do Assassin's Creed Shadows. Would you have done the other dozen Assassin's Creed games or any of the spin-offs which all have similar premises? Would you do any of the Far Cry games which feature white protagonists traveling to African and Middle Eastern adjacent countries? I know it's not the real countries, but you know what it's supposed to be. Of course I can keep going by the way, but seriously, this isn't a rhetorical question now. If any anti-woke individuals are still watching this video, genuinely, what is the difference between Assassin's Creed Shadows and pretty much any other game Ubisoft has ever made? I'm waiting. Okay, there is none. Okay, cool. Moving on from that, this isn't a criticism that Laura said specifically, but a common one that I saw from the anti-woke warriors when this controversy was fresh went along the lines of, Assassin's Creed is finally in Japan. I wanted to play as a Japanese samurai, not this fake black guy, etc, etc. You know what they say. First of all, when has Assassin's Creed ever in the history of their games made someone that's already a big mover and shaker a protagonist? It's always an unknown person or a person that barely has any history. Outside of that, if we played as, say, Hattori Hanzo or whatever your favorite samurai or ninja is, what makes this game any different from dozens and dozens of franchises that already take place in that time period? Assassin's Creed isn't the series it once was. You're not leaping off too many buildings into bales of hay or anything like that. There's a lot more action RPG, hack and slash kind of mechanics now. And as far as hack and slash games set in that Japanese time period, we are all set. We are good to go on that. We have way too many of those. But you know, that wasn't even the biggest one to me. The most egregious thing people have said during this controversy is pretty much anything to the effect of Asian erasure. Now, listen, I don't want to downplay anybody's struggles or problems. Genuinely, if there are any Asian creators or really any Asian people watching this video who believe there is Asian erasure going on in any capacity in gaming, please leave a comment, DM me, I need to talk to you. But for everybody else though, well, as far as I can see, there's not really any Asian erasure going on. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Outside of white men, Asian men might be the second most represented group in all of gaming. Of course, there's good reasons for that. Japan, outside of America, probably has the best and biggest output of games in the entire world. And I mean, there's no contesting that 2/3 of the best-selling consoles come from Japan. It's obvious. And with that being the case, and it has been the case for decades, there's an extremely rich 40+ year history of games that primarily feature Asian protagonists, and that's just one country. Don't count out Korea and China, they're not slackers either, and their games are the same way. Just 2 series, Nobunaga's Ambition and Romance of the Three Kingdoms, those 2 game series alone will give you all the Asian protagonists you could ask for. No stereotypes, everybody's fleshed out, everybody has character arcs, everything. Or if you're looking for something a little more action-based, how about Sengoku Basara or Samurai Warriors? By the way, these are not individual games, these are series. Of the 4 series that I just mentioned, none of them have less than 5 entries. 3 of them have more than 10. What are we talking about? Oh, and if you were looking for something a little more contemporary, well, have fun with Sleeping Dogs, GTA Chinatown Wars, and the Yakuza franchise. Like, I don't want to waste your time, so I'm not going to keep naming stuff off, but I could really keep going. Shin Megami Tensei and Persona both came out this year. What are we talking about? Meanwhile, here's a fun challenge you can do at home for everybody watching. Name 10 games, not series, just games with black male protagonists. That'll probably take you a few minutes. And for the hard mode, you can't say CJ, Barrett, or anything to do with a sports game. And for the impossible mode, name 5 games where black men are the only protagonist, not one member of an ensemble group or something like that. In fact, get your Google out, just Google it, right? Yeah, after the first 5 or 6 entries, you're gonna start saying games nobody's ever heard of. Back to the gaming industry elephant, Laura says this.
I would never have agreed to do this game because even if you handled it as delicately as possible, it's easy to make a mistake. And I think they have. The game isn't even out and it's already mired in controversy, and this isn't what you want for your game. Maybe it'll blow over and they'll be able to navigate this. But if not, that was a very expensive experiment.
And I also saw her comment this, and I think with these 2, we can get a better understanding of her perspective. Now, I'm not too sure what positions Laura held at the company she was at, but from the anecdotes and the stories she tells, she was at the very least someone that people report to. I believe she was a producer, and at the very least, she was somebody that would be held responsible if games succeeded or not. So I can understand that risk-averse mindset. Only make things that are proven mindset. But that type of thinking ultimately is what brought the industry into the position it's currently in. Forget this stupid culture war stuff for a second. Everybody knows the executives behind these studios don't want to potentially waste their money on new IP and keep trying to innovate their games year over year. No. They want the safe, the risk-averse option. Give the market exactly what it wants. Okay, Fortnite's one of the top games. Okay, third-person shooter, first-person shooter, live service, skins, cosmetics, camos, more microtransactions. That's what the market wants, right? We don't want to do anything risky. We don't want to try new ideas. Just keep doing what works until it stops making money. And then we'll fire everybody. Simple. All of you anti-woke warriors, you're fighting invisible enemies, ghosts, phantoms, when the real enemy is right in front of you. You think gaming is bad because of the so-called activists, the so-called modern audience boogeyman. I can tell you why gaming is bad, and I don't need to guess at it or create some monster in my head. DEI didn't force Rockstar to make Suicide Squad. Executives did. Sweet Baby Inc. didn't tell Firewalk to make Concord a $40 hero shooter. It's the executives. That's the real elephant in the room. And if you idiots put 10% of the effort you put into your anti-woke effort into standing up for developers who are getting laid off by the thousands, maybe we could see some change. But no, you're mad because there's black and gay people in the game, right? You're mad because everyone's not a straight, stoic white male like the Xbox 360 days. Any of the anti-woke people left, I'm assuming they're all gone by now. If they're still here, they're scrambling to the comments to say, well that's not true. I'm not mad about black people in the game. Just look at Barrett, look at CJ. Right. I could sit here and literally just put dozens and dozens and dozens of racist comments, sexist comments, whatever. But that won't make anyone switch their perspective. They know about those already. Just know that I know what you are. If you see the people in your community making those disgusting comments and you decide actively not to stand up to them, don't think you're any better than them or any different. Looking through the comments of that video, well, first of all, it makes me sad, but this comment in particular stood out to me. I've read a lot of TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube comments, but this is the most concise, the most articulate, and the most direct I've ever seen an anti-woke warrior be. When you look at the words and the sentences individually, it doesn't sound that unreasonable, right? But this individual in reality is saying all games with minorities will sell worse than games with white protagonists, and they will never play as somebody of another race. This is why I take umbrage with some of the statements in her video. I don't know her, but I truly don't think she's bigoted in the slightest. I just don't get that feeling. But the language and the tone she used in some parts of the video only bolster and encourage people that have those anti-woke beliefs. Now, when Laura speaks, she's speaking from a business perspective. Obviously, the anti-woke warriors are speaking from another perspective. But it sounds like the same thing. Listen, did any of the executives at Ubisoft question whether doing Assassin's Creed Shadow was a good idea? I love the people and the culture, and based on that experience, I would have never agreed to do this game, because even if you handled it as delicately as possible, it's easy to make a mistake. If it fails, that was a very expensive experiment. An experiment. This game is no more or less an experiment than any other Assassin's Creed game. But do you want to know the main difference between this game and every other mainline Assassin's Creed game? I'm sure you can guess. The last thing I want to hit on regarding this video is that Laura is tackling the elephant in the room, the culture war, whatever. But she's really only covering one side of the so-called war, only holding one side accountable, only admonishing one side. Nothing towards the so-called other side. How can you cover a war if you only talk about one side? You're missing half the battle. She admonishes the Ubisoft devs for even attempting to make Assassin's Creed Shadows, which, as I've stated earlier, is super weird considering not just Ubisoft's games, but many, many others with similar concepts. And in addition to that, she specifically calls out the avowed developer who clapped back at Elon, even asking why would he do it, and what did Elon do to him?
Apparently there are pronouns in the game, and Elon Musk reacted on X saying that having pronouns in a fantasy video game is utterly unacceptable. To which the art director responded, "I wanted so badly to make him mad with my game, and I cannot believe it actually happened. Just wait until you see the default, you said little shit." I personally find this situation baffling. Does he know Elon personally? Why does he want to make Elon mad with his game? Why would you say this to someone who is easily one of the most controversial people on the planet?
Instead of using that controversy to segue into talking about some of the toxic behavior that comes from that side, instead we move right into talking about workplace morale, which is a completely disconnected issue. You know, people with this perspective and this perspective, which is a whole other topic, I'm asking you genuinely, if you had control over the entirety of the games industry, somehow, some way, what would you want to happen? Would every single game that comes out only feature white protagonists and only people with European origins? Is there never a situation where a game with a person of color can come out with AAA backing and not have all this controversy? I long for the day when a game can come out with a black protagonist front and center and not be mired in some weird controversy or be considered an experiment. This has been Fanta signing out. Thank you.